Thank you for joining us today. We are so excited to be here for this brand new interview series. And the goal of the series is to truly just bring leaders to the space that are doing the good work. So people leaders that are being very thoughtful in how they design and create spaces for their teams. And someone I would love, and I'm so honored to introduce you to today is Camille DeMere. Hi, Camille.
Hi.
So we're going to dive in and just share a little. We'll get to the agenda in a moment, but we're going to dive in, have a conversation today all about leadership and kind of how Camille got to where she is and what she has already been doing and what she's hoping to do. But first, before we do anything in this space, we love to take a moment to get grounded. We know you have a lot going on. Whenever you're listening to this recording, it's been a busy day, a busy morning, a busy evening. Just taking a moment to pause and get ready to receive one important takeaway, one new nugget of information that will be helpful for your leadership practice moving forward. So if you're comfortable wherever you are, you can just pause on your walk, you can pause at your desk, you can close your eyes. And let's just take 3 deep breaths together. If you are comfortable on your inhale, go ahead and lift your shoulders all the way up to your ears. Inhale and exhale, let it go. Good. Do 2 more just like that. Inhale and exhale. 1 more inhale. And exhale. Coming into this space, I would love to share a quote with you. And here it is. I was like, wait, I think I lost my page. Nope. So it's from Jackie Kennedy, and she said, we should all do something to right the wrongs that we see and not just complain about them. We should all do something to right the wrongs that we see and not just complain about them. This quote hit me when I was flipping through this fabulous book of great quotes from great women. Just because thinking back to my past working for companies where company culture was quite toxic, I found myself complaining a lot. And then I finally decided that I was so tired of hearing myself complain, I was going to do something about it.
I love that.
Here we are now. So I don't know if the quote brings up anything for you either that you'd like to share.
Oh, so much. And also same sort of place that my mind went to is it's really it's natural, right? To feel something that's uncomfortable, especially when you don't feel like you have much power and feel like your only outlet is to complain. And I think there is sort of an idea, and I think this can be true for a little bit, that getting it out like cleanses you of it. But honestly, especially if it's nothing is changing, you're in a workplace, you have to show up every day to the same situation, complaining just like puts more into your body, into the air. Like you're not actually fixing, you're just kind of perseverating. So definitely been there, definitely complained more than my fair share. And then that shockingly didn't change much. So yeah, I feel that totally.
Yeah, I agree. And it is also like the complaining is contagious. And then when you decide
Yep.
to flip your mindset and bring a more action oriented and a more healing approach,
Yeah,
like that is contagious too. So it's exciting to see
totally.
that, you can flip the narrative and the new narrative does work.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally.
So, well, thank you so much for being here today. I would
Yeah.
love to dive in and just hear from you. Who is Camille? What do you currently do for work? What industry are you in? Just tell us what we need to know.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Camille. My pronouns are she, her, and I am a freelancer. I currently work in the cannabis space and super fascinated by that. But I've also worked in startups and nonprofits. And you and I met when we were working out of the CSI, Center for Social Innovation. So very passionate about like social impact. And yeah, that's who I am as far as like my working side.
Do you work fully remote? Are you in person with clients? How do you manage that?
Well, yes, right now I would love to get back to the days when I'm in person with folks, but no, I am fully remote right now. I'm actually immunocompromised, so I've been remote for my health, but it's also I've worked from home or worked remote, however we've been calling that since 2013 on and off. So I was doing it before it was cool, and
You were an OG.
OG, a little bit of an OG. Yeah, like I used to work out of a co-working space that literally was just a couple tables in a warehouse in Bushwick. So like, before
Amazing.
co-working spaces were even like the things they were or are. Yeah.
I love that. And it's great to
Yeah.
hear that you're interested in being back in person, but it seems like you'll always have or want the flexibility of working remote too.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope that so many of us have figured out that sometimes you don't actually need to be in physical space. And then those times when we can be, there's certain things that really need to be done physically. And so I'm hopeful that people are seeing that ability to design their days, maybe a little bit remote, maybe a little bit in person, and really like allowing people to have that flexibility of maybe not commuting every single day whenever that becomes the norm.
Mm-hmm. Before we move on from that, I'm just genuinely curious. What is like one thing you would love to use in-person work for? Where do you see the like juicy possibility there? That's
Well,
not a waste of our time.
yeah, so brainstorming in certain ways, I think there is something that can't be replicated. I haven't really figured out the way to like, there have been so many moments where coming together in a physical space helps a group really center in on why they're there, and just being able to like write on whiteboards and move sticky notes and stuff around. Like, yeah, Miro exists, all sorts of different tools I've used throughout the pandemic, but Lord, I would love to just be in a room and throw stuff up on a whiteboard and be able to erase it. Like, there is something about that tactile thing that I miss.
Yeah, the shared energy and like that kind
Yeah,
of ebb and flow of
totally.
people moving through the space that allows ideas to move, and the editing process and
Yeah, and like side conversations are a thing that just like where there's one main conversation happening and then someone says like one little word and then someone else and they're like, oh, da, 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 and they're like, oh, actually, like, hey, we just had this, but the way that a Zoom room works, it really is only one flow of conversation can be happening at once. Even like the chat function, you know, it's so different. We all know.
yes.
We've all been in this.
Yeah. Cool. I just think companies are really starting to think, okay, if we do bring our people together, what should we
Yeah, what's the point?
do? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so it's lovely to hear kind of your take on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you, in my universe, are someone I always think about when I think about building people-centered teams. You're an extremely thoughtful leader. You have not only kind of used people-centered approaches to um, your clients, which I think is really interesting coming as a freelance, but you're also, when we work together, looking at like larger industry-wide changes that need to happen as well. So just kind of take us back in time a little bit. When did you realize that a people-centered approach to leadership was really a priority for you? Yeah.
Yeah. Um, that's a good question. I I feel like the first time that it impacted me, and I could have benefited from people-centered thinking in teams. I don't think I was really aware that this was even a possibility. So one thing I feel like, at least for me, coming up, we knew that like stay in a company until you retire sort of thing wasn't happening as much anymore. Um, and a thing that, at least in my mind, that I see or I saw in that world was like professional development and people like taking you under your wing and teaching you. And so when I first got into just full-time professional work, I noticed the lack of that. I noticed that there was like onboarding, but not really training, not really professional development, trying to find someone's next position. I was aching for that in my first few jobs. It didn't feel like that was something that my managers or my bosses had really even been trained in themselves or taught themselves. So I used to say that I was really looking for a team. And what I was meaning, I realized after working with you, is I was looking for like a people-centered team. I was looking for people who were not just trying to collaborate day to day on work, which could be team work, but they were also seeing their teammates, their employees, their managers, their subordinates as whole humans who had additional factors into their working styles, who had additional talents that might not be in their job description, like had additional challenges that you wouldn't think of if you didn't sit down and say, hi, who are you as a person? And so more than anything, I think I have realized that that was important to me because I wasn't getting that in my day-to-day workplaces, when I was fresh out of college and in startup worlds and stuff like that. It is it feels like it's not as common as it should be, to have that sort of human-based approach to training, to working day to day, to planning, 5-year plans and stuff like that. It's a lot more shareholders and bottom lines, which are important, but people at the end of the day are what get you to the finish line.
Right. When you said that question, hi, who are you as a human?
Yeah.
It hit me so deep, and I just like I could just feel the
Yeah.
depth and like the opportunity to pause and like just simply asking that to your people
Yeah.
in different ways as you get to know them more and more, but
Right.
like that genuine check-in uh seems really, really powerful.
Yeah, and it's such a simple, like it's
It
deceptively
costs
simple.
$0.
Yeah, $0, like 5 minutes, honestly,
Yeah.
it can be done before a meeting, it can be done over a cup of coffee after someone's signed all their papers or in the interview process, like there are so many opportunities to say, like, tell me more about you. And it doesn't need to be invasive, right? It doesn't need to be like, don't have a work life balance, don't have any like boundaries or things that you leave at home. That's not what it is. It's like, what else would you like me to know about you? Other
Hmm.
than, that you're really great at replying to my emails. Like,
That you're a marketing
what
professional, right?
exactly? Yeah. And I think in a lot of moments, the first time, if a manager were to have asked me that question, the first couple times I might not have had an answer for them just because it
Mm.
is so shocking to be approached that way. But I've noticed that um, when you take that time out with folks consistently, that even if the first 3 or 4 times that you kind of give people an opportunity to discuss challenges or discuss dreams or any of that, they might not bring up anything, like that fourth time they're going to be like, you know what, I actually trust you, like I do actually think you're not just saying this, you're curious, and like you have to show
Mm.
that. But so it's a process. It's definitely something to build on. Um, but yeah, that would
Oh,
have been so cool.
yeah,
That's a young one.
right. And I agree that it's definitely, it is a process because, like you're saying, I didn't realize this was a sign of a healthy culture.
Right.
Back in the day, I could tell you all the signs of a toxic culture because that's
Yeah.
normally where I spent my time.
Super easy. Yeah. Yeah.
um,
No
but I
problem
wasn't
at all.
exactly sure like how to start flipping the narrative. And this is really interesting. And because it's not as common as we would like it to be, it will, the note that you made about it taking time, about
Yeah.
someone maybe not opening up the first, second, third time you ask, but then eventually, with the consistency, that trust does build. And so asking it and meaning it
Right.
comes through, and that's exactly like you said, those 5 minutes every week,
Yeah.
every other week will eventually yield the conversation that you would like to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Absolutely.
What else would you like me to know about you? I think that could be a lovely onboarding question too, just to
Totally.
set the stage. That we're curious, but whatever you're comfortable sharing is welcomed.
Right. Yeah. And there's also modeling that should happen. Like if you're asking folks to be vulnerable or to, share with you their sort of half designed plans, um, you do also have to be willing to do it yourself and to show
Mm,
up first. And that's something that we talked a lot about in people-centered teams, was like, wherever you are in a company or in an organization, you can create change from there, even if you're one of the people with the least authority or the least management. You can show up the way that you'd like others to show up, and that will
mm,
give the people permission to do that as well. And also the curiosity of like, oh, what's Camille doing with this? Like, oh, okay, like maybe this should be part of our day-to-day structure. So I've also done that before, where I'm not necessarily the top dog at all. But through me saying, here are my current concerns, here are my current limitations, here's, if we could have everything we wanted, this would be what I would personally love. That vulnerability lets people be a little bit more creative in meetings or HR conversations or contracts or whatever it is.
Mhm. Oh, good. You have to go first. Even if like we don't have the hat to do it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Um,
And I
and
think wearing the hat actually will promote us to the places we want to go.
yes. Yes, because people know that you can fill that role because you're
Mhm.
already kind of doing it in the ways that you can where you are. So
Mhm.
they can trust you. They've seen it.
Mhm.
Um, yeah,
And they
for sure.
see how people follow and
Mm-hmm.
build the trust with you and like
Yeah,
want to be in the room with you.
yeah, for sure, for
Just
sure.
amazing. So we started the conversation with this quote about complaining. So we were in a complaining space at some point in our career. How did you start to make little changes in the way you showed up as I say leader, but even
Yeah,
though there probably wasn't the title to go along with it, but
right.
as an individual that had this set of values and knew that people centered work was possible.
Yeah. Um, well, one, uh, there are toxic places where there's just not too much to be done. There are, like, unfortunately, not, this is not a magic wand to wave in every single situation. Um, so honestly, leaving some places freed up my mental energy, let me feel what had been being drained by a less than people centered approach.
Mm,
So freelancing for me was that time where I got to leave a place where I didn't feel powerful at all. And as scary as it was, be absolutely the one with the most power um, over my day to day situation. And not to say that there weren't plenty of conversations with people reminding them that we were approaching each other as equals. But yeah, sometimes you really do need to shift up your environment. And that was true for me. So that's one thing.
was there
Another
like
thing,
a
oh, yeah.
moment like or like a breaking point or like it's something that you're willing to share where you're just like this I can't
Yeah.
change this. Like I do need to change the energy. Was there a specific event or was it kind of just a buildup over time?
Um, well, I would say that for me, um, where I was working had a mission statement, and I deeply agreed with the mission statement.
Mm,
And it took me a long time to realize how little of that mission statement actually made it into our day to day operations, and how little that mission statement was a part of our monetary decisions.
mm,
Um, and so I actually definitely am continuing to unlearn the like stick with a place until the end sort of mentality. That's not what I would love for everyone watching this to do exactly not that. But that was my situation.
us
So
loyal
I
folk, it's hard.
there are people who do not, there are people, there are processes that do not deserve your loyalty.
Hmm.
And there are situations that you are not going to be able to complain your way out of.
Yep.
And you are not set up to change anything. And that is powerful to understand, to admit to yourself. It's scary to leave a job. It's like it feels impossible. It's designed to be impossible the way that the US does health insurance and retirement and all of that tied to our jobs. It it gives our jobs a lot of power over our lives.
Yes.
And so I think for me, I stuck around. I know for me, I was sticking around for the health insurance.
Mhm.
Um, and I was also letting my health be zapped by the place that was giving me health insurance or was providing health insurance. So for me, it took a layoff to leave a toxic place. I didn't actually choose to leave, but as soon, like 2 weeks after leaving, my energy was so much higher. Like
Mm,
my vibration was so much higher. Um, I I should have left a long time ago. Um, but when I left, however I left, uh, I took some time to say which parts of that do I never want again.
mhm.
And really, like, I have a journal entry of everything that I needed to look out for, right? And I chose to stick with freelancing because I wanted to give myself the opportunity to be the one in charge a little bit when it came to what I was doing day to day, to remind myself that there is power in each individual that shows up, and like I am a worthwhile contributor, however that last workplace was making me feel.
Mm,
So yeah, for me, it was a bit of a mess. It was definitely a messy, and like I recommend for people I know, like it's so hard, especially at toxic places, to find the energy to look for a new place. But if it's gotten so deeply like draining that you don't have the energy to even think about looking at another place or going to a networking event or reaching out to someone, like that's got to be a sign. You've got
mhm.
to understand that nothing's getting better anytime soon, right? So yeah, it's awful, and yeah, it might feel like running uphill with a 50-pound weight on you, but you got to try. So
Yeah.
yeah, for me it was a mess, but every
Thank
day.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
thank you for sharing that because
Yeah,
it is so vulnerable, and a lot of times we feel like we are the only ones like on
right.
this we're on this island, but we know we don't belong.
Yeah. Yeah,
And we know that there's other options out there in all reality, right? Like the hundreds of thousands of but like
right.
in the moment it feels impossible.
Yes.
And
And
if
it
we've
feels like
never
giving
left a
up.
job before,
Yes.
yet we feel like a failure. We feel like giving up. We feel like who are we going to let down? We really like one person
Mhm.
there. What about the person that
Mhm.
helped us get hired or the connections that were all made to
Mhm.
get there? But I think we all know long before we actually make the jump that our,
Yeah.
our tuition, our intuitions are screaming by the time
Yeah.
we
Yeah, and
actually
like
do it.
and and you know, there I think it's worth sitting down. I actually, because I'm refreshing my resume right now, and
Mhm.
I I wish that I could hold this in my head the times when I'm, not looking for employment, is like every 6 months, every 3 months, I wish that I would sit down with my resume and just look at all the things that I've done, because a toxic workplace or even just the grind of the day to day can make you forget how fantastic you are and how much value
Mhm.
you're bringing to wherever you are right now. And really laying it out in black and white and bullet points makes you go, wait, what am I doing? I'm
Damn.
great, actually. I'm gonna
Yeah.
go talk to a couple people and let them know how great I am. And I wish
Yes.
that, you know, 2016 Camille had done that too,
Yeah.
because yeah, she was adding so much value to that place, and that place was taking a lot of energy from her, and benefiting from her work, without really paying it back in to her.
Yeah.
Um, and that's hard. That's really hard when you're in it day to day.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. Work. Um, so I'm gonna circle back to our
Yeah.
question. How did you start making change? I think this
Oh,
this
yeah,
is really
sure.
helpful because we see, the storm that happened a bit, and the layoff forced the shift, but you really intuitively knew that that shift was coming. And so
Hmm.
how do we start to repair from that shift? And
Yeah.
um how do we start to repair before we probably even can take some action to rebuild the new systems and new relationships?
So, this reminds me of actually, I was really interested in, the client that I work with now. I was really fascinated by her. We were social friends, like social media friends. And I really wanted to work with her, but I was so afraid because I did feel like I had been kind of beaten down by this previous place. And as we were finishing up people centered teams, uh, this conversation about maybe coming on a full time retainer basis started happening, and
Mm,
I actually wrote her a letter. I wrote her a whole long letter about what I was afraid of, what I was excited by about the job. Like, it wasn't a cover letter. It was something a little bit more intimate. And that's because we had that relationship already. But I really laid it out and I was like, this is what this is what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid that I won't know what success looks like, and so I will fail. I'm afraid that I am not sure, like that I haven't received criticism in a way that was constructive, and that makes me like clam up, and I'm afraid that will happen in this contract. And like, I've never done this exact thing before, and so I'm insecure about that. And that's so much vulnerability, and I'm not necessarily saying that everyone needs to do that in every situation, but for me in that moment, I needed to get it all out and know that the other person was signing on, and that I
mm,
had already put all that out there, that I wasn't coming, hiding all that, trying to be the perfect, unblemished employee with no previous, bad stuff jumping in my mind. There's so many jokes about millennials getting emails saying, "Hey, call me," from our boss, and being like, "That's it, we're fired, done, I'm over it." Like, I don't
I'm
know,
getting let
like,
go.
I'm getting
Yeah.
let go. Yeah. And it's just like, "Hey, can you work a little longer tonight?" or something like that. It's like so simple. And I think that is because there have been a lot of moments where there wasn't a conversation able to be had. And so I knew I had
Mm,
a little bit of power, that I had a little bit of bandwidth, and I used it on this, and it made for like all the difference when we started, because I had already named my concerns and they
mm,
could be answered. And again, a more intimate relationship than your average freelancing situation. But for me, that just helped me go in stronger. And I think that there are other ways that people can do that. But that's how it went for me. And then one of the things that I said as I started that gig was that I wanted to build out processes. I wanted to be a part of creating those things. So I think for other folks, it might be asking questions to know that some of this is already in place and expressing interest that they want to be a part of creating these processes. But for me, yeah, it really was that full vulnerability and just like, here's what I am not interested in a workplace. Here's where I know that I am the one bringing these nerves, right? That this is not you, and it's still going to be a part of my day to day for a while. So, like, I'm not going to pretend like I'm not nervous or worried about these things, because that's only going to be a
Right.
detriment. So,
What would you call this letter? This is so juicy.
I know, I don't even know. It was so vulnerable. Um, what would you call it? I just laid it all out there. I think it's
I
that. I just laid it all out there. Um,
Because for someone that might not feel comfortable giving that to a human at their
right.
workplace, I think this practice of writing the letter to the workplace is
Yeah.
still such a brilliant and grounding journaling
Yeah.
exercise, if
Yes.
you will.
Yeah, for sure, for
And
sure.
healing, because like really vocalizing what you're coming with, and again, vocalizing meaning like on paper to self,
Yeah.
vocalizing like and really mapping it out, like these are my fears about entering this new position.
Yeah.
This is some of the baggage I am coming with. This is how, and this is like what I'm committing to bringing to. I'm committing to owning some
Yeah.
of this, and I'm committing to hold boundaries in place that support my X, Y, and Z of what I need from an organization.
Yeah.
And then whether we consciously or subconsciously do it, that language from the journaling exercise will start to come out in conversations
I
and start to
totally agree.
show up in your vulnerability as like, ooh, that was like a little stingy or sticky for me. It probably
Yeah.
is because something like this happened at my past company and I
Yes.
haven't fully processed it. Ha ha ha. Like, cool. Like, but like we can move on. But it's like, oh, Kelsey just shared something from her past company, and this is why she's
Yes.
responded this way, because you're starting there. And
Yeah.
you
No, I
have
fully
done some
agree.
of the homework beforehand.
Yeah, and also like the part, because I think what was so revolutionary, and I agree that even if I hadn't sent this, that we would have, that just writing it out would have done something, is when I laid out, when this happens, I react this way, or I have in the past reacted this way, and I don't want to do that anymore. And just having those 1, 2, 3, even if another person isn't privy to that layout of 1, 2, 3, like, again, like I could have a moment where I'm like, ooh, I'm noticing a resistance to like showing up right now. I've laid out like, oh, like I felt slightly criticized, and so now I'm not sure I can show up authentically. And even just naming that can then make it easier to let it go, name it, say hello, send it off.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Resistance is so real. And like you said, it comes often. And so
Yeah.
you have clearly done a whole lot of work on your end to start to understand all of these emotions and actions, reactions, interactions,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, to be the best version of self in your day to day, but also in your work relationships.
Yeah.
So I value your commitment to this work. It's incredible.
Thank you.
All right. I think we should wrap up. We've been going for
Oh
a
my God.
while.
I
I
can't even believe
know.
that. This was so fun and like just chatty. So,
Yes. I love it. And I love everything you shared. And there's so many nuggets that I really look forward to going back and pulling out. Um, you mentioned this earlier, and I just want to circle back, kind of like rapid fire. I have a few last questions for you,
do it. Go for it.
but a value that comes to mind that you live by as a leader.
Authenticity.
Authenticity.
Authenticity for sure.
And what does authenticity mean to you?
Um, Being true to who I am, and that's being vulnerable, but that's also naming what I want or I dream, not as something that should already exist, but as an aspiration. Like, I think
Mm.
aspiring for something and naming it, um, doing that with a team makes it more real, makes it more possible, and just being who you are all the time. Um, and I think a lot of us are pressured to show up as different versions of self, and there's always going to be a little bit of that, but if there's really who you are all the time, you're never going to be caught in those things of, oh, well, you were this to one person, you said this to one person. Like, I don't ever want to play that. Like, I want to be who I am. I want someone to recognize who I am and my values, whether we're coworkers, whether I'm your manager, whether I'm your client, whether I'm someone attending your event. Like, I don't want to ever have someone assume one thing about me and then find out later that that was like a facade, just because that makes people feel played, and I'm not about that.
Yeah. What's something you would tell your former version of you, maybe former version of work you, early career Camille?
mm. um I would say you are always more capable than you assume. Um, Narrate your day to day for people who don't see you. So if you're working remotely, don't assume people are going to think you're working the whole time. Like, let them know physically. And if you feel like a boss, or if a boss is comparing you to someone else within your conversations, they're doing that to that person too. So you're not like, if someone's pitting you against another employee, that's the person who's pitting you is the person that you need to focus on. Don't this is actually just a distraction, right? So
Mm,
be aware, because I think a lot of people, um, they're uncomfortable with what's happening within their workplace, and so then they're like, oh, it's my two employees that I need, like, to pit. And it's like, no, like, just be aware. That would be a great thing to, just for every young person to go, like, it's actually not your coworker. Like, you got to pay attention to who is like criticizing someone in front of you, because they're criticizing you in front of other people too, and that's like kind of a downer,
wow.
but true.
Yeah. Oh, spidey senses around these healthy and unhealthy
Yeah.
habits.
Yeah.
And how do you, last but not least, how do you stay inspired as a leader, as an
Hmm.
individual, as a human?
Uh, I like to make sure that the voices that I'm consuming are super varied, and if I'm uh, kind of seeing the same advice over and over again, I like to go see what's going on in another industry. So what's the parallel? Like, always ask yourself, okay, I'm doing this in this industry. Who is the like alternate universe Camille in this industry? What are they up to? What do they value? Who are they reading? Um, because it all can be put back into you.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for spending such
Thank
quality
you.
time with us today.
Yeah.
We will have some highlights and ways to connect with Camille, and we will be sharing this out in the coming weeks. So we're so excited, and we appreciate you being on this like guinea pig version of this interview
Yeah.
series with incredible humans and leaders. So thank you for spending the time with us today.
Thank you.